Buen Camino. Let's talk about the walk from Burgos to Hornillos de Santiago. Actually, there's not much to talk about. It's a really straightforward day. No twists and turns, no strange things happening. Very straightforward, easy walk. You start by walking through a good portion of Burgos. Burgos is huge, so leaving Burgos, you're going to be in the Burgos neighborhoods for several miles. Then after that, you get to two small towns. They'll have places to eat. They're right next to each other. That's at about the halfway point. Then you'll have some more fields. It's only 20.6 kilometers, shorter than a lot of the days we've just had. It took us 6 hours, which is one of our shorter days. And let's see, we did it in 28,500 steps. So everything pretty easy. Our feet were happy at the end. When we got to Hornillos, we didn't reserve ahead of time. We did want a private room so that we could do a little work, but we couldn't find a place online to reserve. So we thought, we'll just get the albergue bunk beds and we'll be happy with that. And when we got into town, the first two albergues were full. So we went to the third albergue, which was called the Meeting Point. And he just happened to have a private room. Now that room was private with a bunk bed, but a private bathroom also. And it was only 45 euros for the whole thing. So we were really happy with that. We also bought the meal, the Pilgrim meal that they were serving there. And that was 13 euros each. Meeting Point as a whole, I think, is a great place. The dorm rooms were only 15 euros a person. There's lots of meeting spaces. There was a big yard, a great laundry facility. The meal was a big communal dinner. They served paella and salad and bread and wine and water and a custard dessert. All very tasty. All in all, there's not a lot in the town other than the albergues and a few places to eat, but it's cute and it serves as a great place to stop on your way along the Camino. Today I'd like to give a shout out to Suzanne from Ireland. We chatted with her quite a while today on our walk and it was really nice to connect with her. Buen Camino.
Today I wanted to spend a little time to talk about Pilgrim Etiquette. As you're going down the Camino, when you're staying in the albergues, what are some of the things you can do just to make sure you're being polite and respectful and, kind of doing what's expected? Some of the things are pretty obvious and some of them are a little bit not, so I just thought I'd talk about it. Some of the obvious ones, of course, just to get out of the way, we want to be kind and respectful and aware of the locals that we're interacting with. You're definitely going to learn Buen Camino as a very standard greeting. You're going to say about 40 times a day as you pass all your fellow pilgrims walking down the trail. But a lot of the people you pass are not going to be pilgrims. They're going to be people who live there and they're walking their dogs or they're just on a walk for their own. A lot of times they'll be coming the opposite direction. And you want to be able to have a friendly greeting for them too. So it's good to know, some buenos dias, buenas tardes. I'd be surprised here in Spain, unlike in South America, where people are much more likely to be a little more formal, I think, and say buenos dias. Here we're getting a lot of holas, hola. Just an interesting thing that I've noticed. But just have a greeting or two ready because you're going to see, locals that you're going to interact with, and you want to just be friendly. When you get into the albergues, there's a couple things. One, just know pretty much as soon as you walk in the door, they're going to have you take off your shoes. They don't want those dirty shoes getting tracked over into the actual rooms. So they're going to have a little cubby or a room or something by itself where everybody puts their shoes. So just be aware that's going to happen. And then you're going to walk in your socks until you get where you're going. A lot of people will bring a second pair of shoes, sandals or something that they can wear, out to dinner or whatever. But just be prepared, you're going to take your shoes off. Once you get into the room, another important thing you're going to want to keep in mind, because what's going to happen is you're going to go in and you're tired and you've got this big heavy backpack and you want to set it down so you can go through it and get out what you need. Do not put your backpack onto the bed. Now this is for two reasons. One, it's to protect the bed because your backpack has likely been on the ground all day long. Every time you take it off, it's dirty. They just don't want you to put that dirty backpack on a place where you and other people later on are going to be sleeping, and you want to keep those beds clean. The other reason you don't want to do that is to protect you, because if there is a bed that happens to have bed bugs, you do not want them to crawl into your bag. So protect yourself. Put your bag on the floor. Don't put it on the bed. There are some albergues who have signs. A lot of them are going to not pay any attention. You're going to get away with it, but other pilgrims are going to notice and be irritated with you. It's one of those real pet peeves some people have, but it's just polite and it protects your bag. The other thing is sometimes, especially in the dorm rooms, there'll be a couple of chairs. There's not enough chairs for everyone, but there's a couple of chairs to help people, in the mornings when you're trying to bandage up your feet, put on your socks, get ready for the day. Please do not put your bag on one of those chairs. Just because you're the first person to arrive doesn't mean you should claim a chair for your backpack. Your backpack is fine on the floor next to your bed. Please just do that. Another thing in the albergues, which I think is pretty common sense, but if you use the albergue, make sure you leave it in better condition than you found it. Make sure you clean up after yourself in the bathroom. If you're going to use the kitchen, make sure you do your dishes. There's usually signs telling you exactly what to do. Some places want you to wash and dry the dishes and put them away. Other places will just ask you to wash them and put them in a common area to dry, and then they'll put them away later. We did actually stay in one place that said, please don't wash the dishes. We're going to do them. We don't trust you, basically, to wash them good enough. So whatever they tell you to do, but generally clean up after yourself. Don't leave mess behind for someone else to have to deal with. Now this kind of spills over into cafes. So when you go into a cafe, what you're going to do, again, don't put your backpack on the chairs. Other people are going to sit in those chairs and they don't want your dirty backpack on it. Most places are understaffed and don't have enough people to come around and really mind that. But I have seen, it was kind of awesome. It was in Orison, actually, our first day. And we walked into the place there to get something to eat. And a lot of people put their backpacks down on the chairs. And the waitress came out and was reprimanding everyone. And she's like, backpack on the floor, backpack on the floor. And she walked around and made everybody put them on the floor. And most people, of course, were super gracious about it and just did it. And then there was one guy, of course he was an American, who was like, why? And challenged her on it. Now this was a probably 65-year-old man against a 25-year-old waitress. But she had a secret weapon, was that she was French. And he said, why? And she just stopped and crossed her arms and stared at him. And eventually he put his bag on the floor and she walked away. It was the most amazing display of aggression I have ever seen. Totally worked. He backed right down. Those French don't mess around sometimes. But do the right thing. Just don't put your bag in a chair that someone else is going to be sitting in. Another thing to think about, and I don't know that this is etiquette like it's required, but just something nice to. One of my goals for this Camino for me is I've been, looking for ways that I can be nice to other people. And one thing is, if you're in a cafe and you order food, sometimes you're going to have a very attentive waiter and they're going to be there and they're going to clear your plates as soon as you're done. And sometimes there is no waiter and you're going up to a counter to get your food and you bring it out. It's really nice if after you're done, take your dirty dishes back up to the counter where you ordered. There's usually a place. It's not probably required, but here's why I like it, because once you leave, now you've left a bunch of dishes on that table, and other pilgrims as they come in, they're not sure if that table is free or if someone, went to go to the bathroom and they're going to be right back. And it just causes this, hesitation and awkwardness. Or then they're cleaning up after you so they can sit at your table. Just clean up after yourself. Don't rely on a, overworked waitress or waiter to come do it for you. Just carry it up to the counter. It takes you 3 seconds and is very considerate. Along those lines, another thing to think about when it comes to the albergues, because I've seen this play out and it's kind of awkward. if you haven't thought about it ahead of time. And it's where, we'll be checked into a dorm room and it's 5 o'clock at night and most people are there, and someone arrives late and they get into the room and they want a bottom bunk, and there's no more bottom bunks because of course everyone wants the bottom bunk, so they go first. And the first time I saw it happen, it was a pair of older women, and they were gonna have a hard time climbing up into the upper bunk. But by rights, once you arrive and you set up, kind of it's your bed. Like, no one can really force you. In this case, someone from the albergue brought them into the room and they were like, "Oh, we need 2 bottom bunks." And the woman was like, "There's none available. You have to take the top." And then she hightailed it out of there. She wasn't going to deal with it. And the 2 women stood there for a minute, and they looked over and there was a younger guy in a bottom bunk, and he hadn't set up yet. He had all his stuff out and was clearly in that bed, but he hadn't actually made up the bed yet. And they went up to him and they asked him if they could have the room. And he was not really happy about it, but he did it. Of course he did it. And then we saw it again in another albergue. Or this is even later at night, but a guy showed up, older guy, and he was bandaged up. So we later learned he was cycling and he had crashed just that couple hours earlier. And he had bandages bleeding on his knees and his elbows. And in this case, the albergue owner was much more proactive, and he went over to one of the younger guys. I think it helps me that I have this very gray beard coming in, a very white beard. Makes me look older. Whoops. But he went to one of the younger guys and he's like, "Look, I know you're in this bed and it's yours by right, but would you consider moving to an upper bunk so this guy can have the lower bunk?" And again, the kid was not happy about it, because you're never happy about it, but he complied. He, was nice. And a little later, the hostel guy came back and gave him a beer, which I thought was very nice of him to, kind of acknowledge what he gave up. And it got me thinking, because there's sort of that sense of justice. I was here first, this is mine. And you don't want to give it up for someone who didn't plan as well. But then on the other hand, maybe the point of the Camino is looking for ways to be nice to people. And if I can be nice to people by giving up my bottom bunk to give them, someone who has more of a need for it than I do, I think I could feel pretty good about that. So at this point, I'm glad that I've thought about it this way, because if that opportunity comes up, I'm going to take it. And, I'll be the nice guy. Now, of course, you've also heard me say we like private rooms. So I don't know that I'm going to be in any more dorms, so it's easy for me to say that. But that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And then I think the last big thing to talk about is noise. And I heard someone put it a really cool way, is that noise can be pollution too. And you just need to be self-aware of how your actions are affecting or might affect other people. And whether that means, being noisy in a dorm room where people are trying to sleep. I mean, I've been in dorm rooms where everyone was in bed going to sleep at 9 o'clock at night, because they're planning on getting up early the next day. And so everyone just goes to bed early. And so if you're the one coming in at 12:30 and having a conversation with your buddy and trying to dig through your bags to find your night clothes because you didn't get prepared ahead of time, just be aware that's not going to be taken very well by the other people in the room. Snoring is something that comes up all the time because so many people snore. It's not just like one guy in the corner. It's a lot of people that snore. And that's kind of one of those things. There's different schools of thought about it. And, it's one of the things that you just want to complain about it. That's fine too. But you're not going to be able to control it. If you're very sensitive to other people making noise, then I really suggest you go with private rooms and don't put yourself in that situation where you're going to be at the mercy of what someone else does, because people who snore can't control it. It's not like they're doing it on purpose to annoy you. It's just, the way our bodies function sometimes. So wear earplugs if you need to. I can't wear earplugs, they bug me, but I've kind of just gotten used to the snoring where we haven't had any really bad situations, which has been great. But, people make noise, people fart, it happens. And I don't know, it hasn't been a problem for me. I've been able to sleep pretty good in the albergues. But if you're a sensitive sleeper, just keep that in mind, and you might want to do more private rooms, save a little bit more money and budget for that, and you're gonna have a better experience than just being irritated by it all the time because people snore. But noise that you can control, make sure you do. One thing we found is people like to set alarms to get up in the morning. This is crazy to me. If you're going to set an alarm, make it be a silent alarm. Put your phone on vibrate and put it under your pillow. No one wants to hear your phone alarm go off. They're very noisy, and what tends to happen is the person who set the alarm got woken up before their alarm, because people always get up super early. Usually 5:30 someone starts stirring. And then sort of whether you want to or not, you're awake. And so pretty much everybody just starts getting up. And so whoever set that alarm gets up, they go to the bathroom, and then their alarm goes off while they're not in the room. And it goes off for 2 minutes, and they come back and they're all like embarrassed. But I don't care if you're embarrassed, just don't set an alarm if it's not silent when you're in a public place like that. That's my advice, that's my pet peeve. Just being aware. Another thing is, sometimes people will be very respectful about being quiet while they're inside the albergue, and then they walk out into the street and they're in a little group and they start making all this noise. And keep in mind, especially when you're walking through these little villages at 6 in the morning, that people are sleeping right on the side of the road with a little window in between you and them, and people start getting silly and loud. People are trying to sleep. Please stay quiet in the mornings. Especially these locals, they probably don't go to bed until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. You don't want to be waking them up at 5:45 because you're feeling excited for your walk. Just be aware of your noise level wherever you are. A lot of people get very irritated when people play music. Like, if you want to have headphones, great, listen to whatever you want. But when you start playing music just for everyone to hear because you want to share it, not everybody's going to share your taste in music. I haven't really had a problem with it. Actually, some of the music that I've heard has been nice. But still, you're kind of imposing yourself on others. And maybe the Camino is more an opportunity to be exposed to other people and see what other people are doing and listen more, rather than kind of just doing everything your own way and making everyone deal with you. Which is something to think about. I don't think any of these are, life-changing kind of etiquette rules. It's just, like I said, be self-aware and read the room, and you're going to be fine. People, I think, are very forgiving. I think people might think things about other people, especially in those dorm rooms early in the morning, but very few confrontations actually happen. It's just something we can all complain about later. So if being a respectful pilgrim is something that's important to you, I hope this video gave you some food for thought. We make videos every day of our Camino. I will put the playlist up to all of our videos right over here. Today.